Only a week ago, the Integrity Ignite Series went to this circuit, and it looks like once again, Pocono Raceway is back on the calendar here in the Integrity OCTANE Series. Race number 20 of the 2024 campaign. The track in Long Pond, Pennsylvania will host 80 laps of action in tonight's feature event. Welcome back to coverage live on FTN of the Integrity OCTANE Series. The championship chase continues, and more than 10 spots are on the table, keeping in mind only 3 full-time race winners this season. A multitude of drivers still looking to lock themselves into the playoff picture now with just 2 races to go after this event in the regular season. I'll be your host for tonight's broadcast. I'm David Troitz, commentating and producing, and it's great to be back once again at the venue here in Pennsylvania. We saw some fantastic racing in the Ignite Series, which came down to the wire with an overtime style finish, and tonight we might just see more of the same. Qualifying now going to be on the move with just under 3 minutes left for all drivers, and as we take a look downstairs, you'll see a majority of the field, 20 plus drivers, are taking times, with the provisional pole held now by Don Stevenson in the number 47. Don going to be up and ahead of the rest of the field now by a tenth. There's Bobby Terrell currently in second of the 5 drivers that have taken a lap. More still to come as our opening laps they kick off the session are in full swing. Michael Lariah going to jump up to the provisional pole now at the end of his first lap, and that's the number 44 of Lariah getting to that point. Let's see now what Michael can do in his final lap here, hoping to stretch the advantage he has for the pole. He, Ethan Lane, Nick Tarbuck, members of the Octane Series Big 3, and after what we saw last week at Watkins Glen, Ethan Lane able to come away with what's now his 9th victory on the schedule. He's come back once again, this time in the Kellogg's number 54, and his sights are set on what could be win number 10. Remains to be seen whether or not he can do that tonight, but it looks like we're qualifying here now. He's looking to start on the right foot at the line for Ethan Lane, 54.359, but not going to be validated, and so he'll go around for a second lap here, which will be the one and only he has, as Michael Lariah remains still in first. Sam Nieto jumps up into 6th. Rookie Kyle Gilbert gets up to 7th, and Galen Gidman is now going to be in 8th. And all eyes are now on whether or not Ethan Lane can maybe get up to the top of the board on this one lap he has. Doesn't look like he's going to have any additional opportunities, so he has to make the most of what he's doing right now on this particular lap. He came out of the final turn last time by a little bit slower than usual, and his average pace reflecting that. So we'll see whether or not Lane's got what it takes now to jump up inside the top 5. Lariah looking to have a strong qualifying run with that 53.096 at the top of the board as Ethan Lane comes across the stripe. That is a 53-second lap down to the millisecond. Lane jumps up to the pole, and it looks like, while not his quickest effort, clearly the fastest and the class of the field. Up to the top of the board and qualifying, Ethan Lane goes. Tom Wetmore gets up to 4th at the same time, and so now 2 drivers in the final 30 seconds move up to the top 5 in the qualifying sheets. Nick Tarbuck has yet to take a time so far, and it looks like he will not be taking one in this session. 17 seconds remaining. Cody Smith, the last driver now to be setting a lap. He finds himself provisionally 12th on the board, and with qualifying ending here and now, it looks like that will be where he remains. And so it looks like shades of last week and yesterday in the Integrity Ignite Series, because Ethan Lane, winner from last week, finds himself on the pole position once again. Lane has his sights set on his 10th victory this season, and what a way to start that chase tonight. He's got the pole position by 96 one-thousandths of a second. It's a relatively foggy day here in Long Pond, Pennsylvania, as drivers go out for their final 5 minutes of practice. And before, of course, we get into the racing here, how about we get to know your starting grid from top to bottom? And, of course, very familiar names at the front of the field, some that we might recognize. Of course, of the 2 race winners we have on the front row. Ethan Lane with the most victories so far, 9 of which, including last week at the Glen. He's looking for his 10th tonight, starting on the inside of row number 1 with the pole position. Michael Araya so far in the campaign has himself a total of 6 wins so far. He'll be lining up in that second spot outside pole position. Don Stevenson going to be in 3rd, and Tom Wetmore going to be 4th. Both drivers will have not yet gotten victories yet, and the rest of the top 10 has not seen victory lane this season. However, Jacob Fife and Sam Nieto 5th and 6th, quick at the big circuits in 2023 with 7 wins apiece in their career. 7 wins total, shall we say. And overall, Bobby Terrell and Nicholas Ward, never winners in the Octane Series yet. Ward with a very strong run last week, a few positions shy of what could have been a top 5 run, and now it's going to be Kyle Gilbert, the rookie in the 58, starting in 9th. Galen Gidman concludes the top 10. 11th place on the running order, then going to be Ross Cato in the number 12, 53.339 for Ross, and Cody Smith finds himself in the 12th spot. Bobby Ross is 13th, and he finds himself now sitting on the final spot of the playoff bubble, with Brian McFerrin then 14th. Kyle Cooper, position number 15. Sean Kalis going to be 16th, and Alan Rawell is in 17th, with Chuck Sweeting 18th, Brad Patton 19th, and Nick Tarbuck in 20th. The final drivers on the grid, 2 of which going to be John Girvan in 21st, and Randy Fiash is the 22nd and final driver registered for tonight's race. 11 rows and 22 drivers make up the starting grid for the Andretti Road 200 from the virtual Pocono Raceway, our second trip in the last 2 weeks, and we're looking to finish off the big track swing strong here today in Pocono, and here next Tuesday at Indianapolis, a replica of the Night Series schedule coming to the Octane Series competitors. And now 2.5 minutes remain here in final practice with Kyle Gilbert, the brand new driver, up to the top of the charts. Kyle is a driver who's making his very first start here at this 2.5 mile circuit in this league. He's gotten himself a few races under his belt to this point. However, he's coming after summer break, so there's no chance for him to lock himself into the championship picture. He's out here looking for victories, and it looks like starting strong tonight in a 9th position, giving him the opportunity perhaps to chase the upper spots of the top 10 from the get-go. We got to see what his short run speed is and his long run speed as well on a 1-lap basis, though he is one of the top 10 quickest drivers no matter how you slice it. With qualifying and practice speeds both kept in mind, Kyle Gilbert should be one of the quicker drivers to keep things moving from beginning to end. And how about now, as he's backing into pit road, we ride on board with another driver. How about John Girvan, who's running 4th right now in the session. Let's take a lap on board with him throughout the tricky triangle. And so John Girvan going to go down and into pit road. It looks like retiring from that lap, and he finds himself sitting on pit road 7/10 off the quickest time so far. The Pepsi number 33 going to be alone on pit road for the most part here. Brad Patton jumps up to the top, and for Brad tonight, that's a lot of damage, and he ends up in a massive wreck, hoping to avoid maybe the way he's been running in this series for the past 2 or 3 weeks, yet to find victory lane. And it looks like now he's in some big trouble. Of course, Patton last week, well, Watkins Glen, it looks like he wasn't able to find the most success, and he is up and over again. And they're just going to keep hitting Brad Patton. There's no success for him in this final session, but he's looking to turn it around from an overall underperforming week in both the Ignite and Octane series, and he is the final driver to put in a fast time in practice here from Pocono. Brad Patton, top of the board in last practice. And here we move on to the starting grid for tonight's race. Hearing something in the chat room from John Steele about 5 turns at Pocono. I believe in 3 turns. That's how I'm going to put it. And the reason I'm going to put it that way is because of where the turns come from. We'll talk about that over our pace lap as the field gets put into formation. 80 laps on the table tonight, and expecting the one-stop strategy to be the move. We saw it last week in the Ignite Series. Drivers could go for the 40-40 split as opposed to maybe splitting it up from a more, shall we say, restrictive sense. 20-20-40, or maybe 30-30, go all the way from there. No, we're expecting to see one pit stop from every driver at the very most, unless damage comes into the picture. Now, if yellow flags are to happen, that's going to be a completely different race. We saw it in the Ignite Series, where final moments of the event, things switched up massively from largely green flag racing to what became an overtime shootout, in which Domination Intimidation Racing came home with a double podium, fighting against the likes of, among others, Matthew Thunorse, Braxton Louise, Thomas Bressi, and of course all the juggernauts in the field that held themselves up high. I believe Nick Tarbuck on that day came home with the second position, splitting up the top three as drivers now make their way out of pit road. Ethan Lane's going to make it into the first of three turns tonight, and that will be Trenton. Based on the initial sequence of cornering here, it's all about iconic circuits from years past, and in oval racing, Trenton Speedway exists no longer. However, when Pocono Raceway was put together in the 1960s, opening in 1969, Trenton Speedway was one of the most popular circuits for local stock car racing, modified action as well. Very prominent, well-known drivers in the NASCAR scene, such as Richie Evans or Jeff Bodine, raced against each other as late as into the 1980s in that circuit. And of course, while Trenton no longer exists today, its memory carried on at another quite large triangle, the one we're at here. Next up, Indianapolis. This corner modeled after one of the very iconic corners from the Brickyard. Lesser banking than that of Trenton, coming in at just about 15 to 16 degrees, give or take. And then you move on to that last corner, which, of course, coming out of the tunnel turn, gives an opportunity here, what's called Milwaukee, based on the Milwaukee Mile, a circuit that has more than a century of history in its modern formation anyway. It has more than 60 years to it, and Pocono Raceway's final corner, very similar to that of the Mile. Minimal banking, and drivers might have to shift gears along the way to find success. Tonight, Ethan Lane looking to keep it in high gear. He won last week to make it his 9th win of the season. He's looking for number 10 tonight. iRacing pace car drops down and in. Two members of the Big Three who have combined for 15 wins so far line up in the front row as Ethan Lane brings the field to green. We're underway here in the Pocono Raceway, and Lane will bring the field company as we head down to the opening turn here in Trenton. Let's go racing from Pennsylvania. The line, Ethan Lane going to find himself race leader, and now he's going to be there with Michael Arias second, and third place, of course, Tom Wetmore. Tonight, a new look for Ethan Lane, and he's going to be channeling his inner Kyle Busch from some 20 years past. Busch getting his first ever victory with this very paint scheme, and after Terry Labonte left Hendrick Motorsports for a very brief time there, Kyle Busch was the driver of the Hendrick number 5. Now, those days are long beyond Busch, and while he's back with, of course, Chevrolet and the former Richard Childress Racing, hasn't quite found that success, and right now, Ethan Lane getting some early pressure. Michael Araya is going to lay into him and dive down to the inside. Michael looking for the race lead for the first time tonight. He will take it, and will take it without very little pushback. It looks like minimal resistance as the 44 jumps up top. So it'll be Michael Relia up to the front of the field. Tom Wetmore now going to round out the podium. Eden C., John Steele, Nancy Wetmore all making up the chat room. Thank you guys for stopping by so early. The battle has only just begun for the race lead, and it looks like tonight, it looks like indeed Ethan Lane will not be the only driver going for the win. Now, last night we were at another 2.5-mile circuit, which was Indianapolis. Thomas Bressie and Nick Tarbuck were the only drivers to have green flag lead changes. The entire race was on the green, mind you, and it came down to 2 passes in the final 30 laps. Bressie led more than 80 laps on the day, came home with a checkered flag, but it looks like tonight Ethan Lane facing a little bit more of that contention from the number 44 Lariah, and Michael again has the lead, and this time it looks like he's holding on to it solidly. 3 laps into the 80 and working down the front straightaway. Michael Araya with Ethan Lane, Tom Wetmore, Sam Nieto, Nicholas Ward. That's the top 5 as they run, and it looks like all 21 drivers that took to the start-finish line are still going as we stand. John Giervon going to be the last of which right now, and every driver still looks to be within the same turn, give or take anyway, so majority of the field is well put together. As you can see, mostly single file. Here's Nicholas Ward, who's up in 5th once again. Don Stevenson is going to be in 6th, and 7th is Galen Gidman. Tonight, a little bit of a more shallow field, a few drivers, maybe 2 or 3, dropping out from last week, and that all comes with the ups and downs of which track we go to, as it looks like Alan Rawell on the wall. He'll lose a spot or 2, but it might be an opportunity for tonight. Some drivers have a chance to maybe take advantage of the attrition. Bobby Ross up inside the top 10 to kick off the night. He's made it up now, a total of 3 positions. And Bobby enters the top 10 for the first time in this race. Let's see what happens here for Ross as he continues to put on a strong fight. He just got by Brad Patton, but of course, Patton, well known as the hard charger in this field, is more than likely to push back sometime soon. He's got himself now locked and loaded with the number 45, trying to drill through the additional drivers that he's made it by so far, and maybe still a few others. They're going to put Kyle Gilbert back in the 13th. Bobby Terrell is into 12th here, and it looks like from 19th up to 11th, Brad Patton has gained 8 so far on the day and has made massive growth. Lap in, lap out, and the success so far in just making those moves and putting things together, it's been especially influential to keeping him in the points race, even though he has chosen not to qualify at all for any races. He has shown up, he has locked himself in, of course, and he's kept himself in the points picture just by driving well in these green flag runs, which have been his biggest strength all throughout his Integrity Racing League career. Patton right now going to be on the quarter panel of that number 45. Bobby Ross is going to stay just ahead, but still trailing. Keep your eyes on the number 7, as now Patton's going to look a little bit down low. Let's see what he's got downstairs as he throws it a little bit just under Bobby Ross, and as they go side by side, it's going to be 2 by 2 heading into Milwaukee once again. They do a little bit more side-by-side racing further back, as you see Chuck Sweeting here with Sean Kalis. Similar distance, but nothing's come of it. Now it looks like Kyle Gilbert's going to be going up and under Bobby Ross as well, side by side. It's now going to be the number 58 of Gilbert right there at the stripe with Ross, and this will put Kyle back into 12th here, and now move him up into 11th. If, of course, he can make it by Bobby. Looks like Gilbert coming through Trenton is going to have a minor advantage, but he's going to slip down once again. Can't quite get the exit off the corner, which is going to give Bobby Ross some breathing room. And it looks like Brad Patton now going to be quite far away. 7 laps in out of 80 so far, and Brad Patton is not going to be worried in the slightest about what's behind him. The rear view mirror is something he will not have to keep his eye on. Instead, looking right up, looking forward. Here's Jacob Fife just ahead, and he's working with Cody Smith. Cody right now going to be in 8th, and he's in the mix for multiple championship races. One of very few drivers who can say that is the case. Nick Tarbuck, one of which, who's right now in 16th, and Cody Smith, both of them are fighting for 2 championships. Now, in the Integrity Ignite Series, Cody Smith finds himself with a little bit more trouble than he does in the Octane Series. He and Vinny Tigner are on the bubble exactly. problem right now for Cody Smith is he finds himself just about 12 points under the bubble, which is, of course, on the wrong side of the picture. Vinny Tigner having a stronger night than he did last night in Indianapolis over the long term and the short term didn't allow for any positions to be gained by Cody Smith, and as a result, the number 18 team, well, they've had to put themselves together from the back end. Making it on up into that bubble battle will be tricky, but here in the Octane Series, he finds himself on the right foot. And with the top 10 run going so far, I can't imagine it's going to be tricky here for Cody Smith to race down the straight, keep himself with Jacob Fife, and maybe look for a few other positions. As up and ahead, Sam Nieto is now going to keep his eyes peeled on Tom Wetmore. Tom starting up inside the top 4 tonight. He's already made it up one position, but Sam Nieto looking to take that right back away from him as Tom right now in that Tube Tech Chevrolet is eyeing race victory yet again. Ever since Las Vegas, Tom Wetmore has tried each and every week to find victory lane. So far, the dominance of that big 3 combination has only been broken once by Blake Cannon, and otherwise the field has been practically unable to get away from the number 51, of course, in the podium fight. But Tom Wetmore, among many others, have never been there for the victory fight when it all comes down to it. Even in Daytona, the big 3 started off with a bang, and the checkered flag went to Nick Tarbuck to kick off what ended up becoming one of the most impressive streaks of dominance between 3 drivers in one league. This will be the 20th race of the season when completed. If Michael Araya or Ethan Lane, who are running first and second right now, if either of them win tonight, well, it'll be the 19th win for the Big 3, and it's a 95% success rate for 3 drivers alone in a field that sees consistently more than 20-25 drivers. That is an unbelievable rate of success when you counter, of course, the fact that we've had multiple overtime finishes. We went to all sorts of circuits, from road courses, short tracks, intermediates, speedways, super speedways, and anything in between. It is quite the anomaly what's happened so far with these 3 who have been wonderful no matter where we go, and it looks like regardless of the venue, they decide to come out every single race and put in all their effort. Now it's going to be Chuck Sweeting, Alan Rowell close to each other yet again. Chuck right now going to be right behind the number 43, and it looks like for Sean Kalis, kept himself just ahead of the 2 drivers battling with them. Defenses have been solid, and that's all he's had to worry about. As Jacob Fife now runs down the straightaway here, 11 laps in, out of 80. You'll see Don Stevenson and Galen Gidman now 9th, 10th, 11th are just behind, and there's 9th place Brad Patton making his way up here. Let's take a ride on board now with Brad and see what's going on. Now it looks like Brad Patton going to be going down to the inside here through the tunnel turn. Taking a look at him hugging the inside, and it looks like he's got the advantage. Jacob Fife going to fall back rather quick, and in just a moment's notice, look at this, the number 7 of Brad Patton. Up and ahead, that's the move for 8th, and up next on his agenda is going to be getting by Don Stevenson in the number 47 here. In addition, you're going to see Galen Gidman, who's at 6th, and all of which now might be in jeopardy as Brad Patton is indeed coming through, 13 laps in out of 80, and you can see the front straightaway jam-packed with drivers. The field is hungry and looking for opportunities to make moves and take passes as quick as possible. 13 out of 80 so far. Bobby Ross going to find himself on the cusp of the top 10. Cody Smith right now might be the driver who gives it up, if anything, but so far it looks like Smith is in a good position, minding his own business and staying alone in 10th, whereas the battle further on back is as tight as they come. Speaking of, Bobby Terrell right now going to be going down to the inside on the rookie and Kyle Gilbert. Bobby on the bottom side. Up top going to be Gilbert here and Nick Tarbuck getting in the mix as well. Not to mention there's Ross Cato, and it's a hornet's nest now. Down to the inside, Nick Tarbuck takes one spot, takes another spot. Now it's a double pass he makes on Bobby Terrell and Ross Cato. And the caution is out. Yellow flag for the first time tonight. It's Ethan Lane. Lane goes around spinning, and he is junked in the front end. And this could be his race. And the fight for 10 victories will have to wait another day. Ethan Lane brings out the yellow flag from the front of the field. Take an instant replay here. Let's figure out what caused it. And looks like contact. Both drivers going to get into the wall there, and they came up at the same time and slammed it. Lane going to get bogged down by Michael Araya and comes back down and into the front straightaway barrier. And for Ethan, that will be his race. We'll see whether or not he gets back on the circuit, but very unlikely he'll be on the lead lap for the remainder of this one. Another instance of the checkers or wreckers sort of mentality that we've seen for Ethan Lane, but tonight, it looks like that wasn't much of an intentional incident, but more so just finding trouble at the wrong time. 14 laps in out of 80, and now it's going to be Michael Araya leading the way, and he's got Tom Wetmore second and Nicholas Ward in third. That's the 1-2-3 combo now with Ethan Lane out the picture. And it looks like Michael Araya maybe a little bit less competition, but we'll see whether or not he can hang on. Coming down to pit road for the first time tonight, this will change the strategy and bring in a two-stop race. Most of the field decides to come in as one here, and it's going to be Michael Araya leading all of which in. You can see the iRacing pace car getting away from the field, and it looks like everyone now, well, they're deciding to drop down to pit road. This is their time, and they're making it in together. Brad Patton going to get into his pit stall quickest of anyone else, and now Michael Araya leads the pack into his pole position pit stall. Well, outside pole anyway. It looks like Ethan Lane going to be there just a little bit late after all the damage he just collected. Here's Ethan Lane, and so now everyone together once more, and coming out of pit road, Michael Araya gonna win the race off. Then it's gonna be Tom Wetmore with Don Stevenson. You see Nicholas Ward, Sam Nieto, Brad Patton and company, Galen Gidman, Cody Smith, Jacob Fife round out the top 10, and that finishes all off the race on pit road. 15 out of 80 so far, and it looks like Brian McFerrin is the man who's at the overall top of the board as drivers finish their run on a pit road. McFerrin is the one and only driver who has decided so far to stay out on the track. So avoiding pit road for the early portion of this one, Brian McFerrin going to be at the top. See what happens next now as he has a chance to come down to pit road this time by, and of course, see if he takes it. Very unlikely that Brian McFerrin is going to be able to hang on here regardless of whether or not he takes it. If he decides to stay out on the circuit, he's going to be on substantially older rubber. 15 laps of extra age, and when we come back to that restart, it's going to be about 17 laps of wear on the tire here, including those green flag laps. It's going to be a substantial disadvantage now, and we'll see maybe Brian McFerrin can hang on for a lap or two. Maybe there's something more in him than we expect, but coming across the line here to make it one lap to green. Yeah, he's going to come down to pit road, no choice, and it looks like he will not decide to stay out on the track here. Brian McFerrin stays on the circuit, and that will move Michael Araya once again outside pole position. Tom Wetmore to the bottom, and it looks like he's going to go there under McFerrin, and most drivers are still deciding here one lap to green. But it looks like for now, most drivers have not gone double file. "16 laps in out of 80. Andretti Road 200 has only just begun in the opening quarter of this event, and every driver who started is still with us here. However, multiple of which are at least one lap down. Second place, of course, to start the night, Ethan Lane now finds himself one lap down, and Randy Fiash 2 laps down as it stands as well, is going to be much further back. Both their nights are going to be in serious jeopardy from here, and we'll see whether or not either of which can pull it back together. Still a lot of time to do so, but unlikely, at least for now, that's what happens. Entering the tunnel turn, still going to be single file here, and it looks like the iRacing pace car is telling the field still 1 lap to green. Now you'll see Michael Araya go up top on the double file side, and it's going to be Don Stevenson coming right there with Tom Wetmore, Nicholas Ward, Brad Patton, all coming together, and Galen Gidman, Cody Smith, and Kyle Gilbert are now the official last drivers on the top 10 picture. Andretti Road 200 comes down to this. Now, pit road entered for the first time. Still one more pit stop necessary to get to the end of race. And Brian McFerrin on old rubber with the sign to lead the field as we come out of our third and final turn. iRacing pace car going to get down and in once again, ducking low and giving Brian McFerrin a chance to lead this event. Let's see what he does with it. Green flag's out. McFerrin going to have a relatively even launch, but he's much slower on that takeoff. And so Tom Wetmore going to drop down to the bottom with Don Stevenson and company. So it looks like it's going to be the Hornet's Nest starting to surround at a 0-7 of Brian McFerrin. As you can see, Brian already dropping back into 7th and moving even further back as the lap has only just begun. Coming up to the tunnel turn, and already Brian going to be 3 wide, trying to hang tough to stay in the top 10. And with little he can do now with momentum prevailing, Brian McFerrin dropping back to the tail end of the field. And while he led a lap or two, it looks like the gains are not being found. He stays side by side now with Cody Smith for the 12th spot. Turn 3. And that's about all he can muster now as he finds himself dropping further back in the clutches of Kyle Gilbert and further company. Leader Michael Araya. Second going to be Tom Wetmore. And third place Sam Nieto. As it stands now, 2 drivers inside of the podium. They have not found victory lane yet, and I'm certain more than ever that they are hungry to find that first opportunity to break through and get a win this season. We'll see how aggressive these drivers are to find that first chance, though. Many of these drivers have yet to find victory lane for multiple reasons, of course. The biggest of which is the dominance of Michael Araya, Ethan Lane, and Nick Tarbuck. With 19 combined victories on the season, it's looked like their season from the very beginning. But Michael Araya tonight finds himself up and ahead, while Nick Tarbuck and Ethan Lane have faltered. Admittedly, though, Tarbuck has been making his way up, but Nick started without a qualifying time and now is going to be up there into 8th. Similar to Watkins Glen, he's had to claw his way up rather than having that innate speed and kicking the race off on a positive note. Instead, he's had to work for it once again, and 19 laps into the 80, the work has only just begun. Now you'll have Jacob Fife, Galen Gidman side by side, and the number 4 of Nick Tarbuck, well, similar position here, except he's going to be battling to take the spots rather than staying neck and neck, dead even. You see there, Brad Patton going to be boxed up to the top, and the number 9 of Galen Gidman is going to be even higher. Coming through the tunnel turn once again, Tarbuck right now scored in 8th, but Brad Patton still having a little bit more momentum on the higher side. It looks like it's still going to be neck and neck. Jacob Fife 8th. Now Nicholas Ward going to be up into 5th and shuffling positions lap after lap after the pit cycle. Let's see who's made the biggest gain so far in the opening quarter of this event. 19th to 8th, a fantastic run so far for Brad Patton, but just behind him, 20th up to 9th for Nick Tarbuck. And then further on back, a few other notable gains. 18th up to 12th for Chuck Sweeting. Once again, making the moves and getting higher up throughout the order. 16th to 15th is only 1 spot gain, but Sean Kalis has made it there. 6th up to 3rd, Sam Nieto. And it looks like a battle now going to be brewing with Sean Kalis and Bobby Ross. Bobby heading down to the bottom side through the tunnel turn. Took the number 45 machine now, looking to get the better of the 43 with Kyle Cooper coming with. Looks like Kyle will try to follow Bobby, but to no avail here. Sean Kalis remains on the higher side, and it looks like Kyle Cooper stays right around intact. Meanwhile, Bobby Terrell battling Kyle Gilbert, and at the stripe indeed, 1/10 back. Kyle Gilbert, the number 58, hangs tough for 13th. Chuck Sweeting going to be in that 14th position here, and looks like he's gotten up into 12th with a few laps past. Overall, Chuck Sweeting has been able to make a lot more out of these longer runs and these strategy races than anything else. Hopefully, after Ethan Lane's one and only incident, because he disconnected, well, we won't see any other yellow flags on the day. It looks like the leader is getting some incidental contact, and then from there, Lane ending up destroyed and bringing the field down to a pace and speed for the first and only time so far tonight. Hopefully, the drivers have learned their lesson about being a little bit more aggressive throughout the corner rather than exiting it. Coming out of the corner the wrong way might destroy your race, and that's something, of course, every driver would like to avoid. Fife right now going to be in 6th, just behind Nicholas Ward in that 5th spot. And for Ward, who has had top 5 pace in what feels like almost every event since summer break, he just has to capitalize to maybe take it a spot or two further and find that first career podium. We've been waiting a long time for that to come, and Jacob Fife, of course, is trying to find his very first win of the season. 2023, he found himself multiple, but tonight just hasn't been on the best of stretches in this 20 race run, including tonight here. 7th, not a bad place to be. He's locking himself in slowly but surely to the playoff picture. But the checkered flag has remained elusive, and perhaps the most important thing for a lot of these drivers is the change from the next gens on to the Gen 4 stock cars. Higher horsepower, a little bit trickier to drive, and to require a different driving style. The two most similar drivers perhaps last season were Jacob Fife and now third-place driver Sam Nieto, both of which were very, very consistent and successful throughout 2023. Sam Nieto coming home with 3 victories and Jacob Fife coming around with 4. Now, as that, of course, comes into mind, you have to wonder what's happened next up for these drivers who had that success last season but haven't been able to turn it around this season, even though they've been consistent top 10 drivers. I think the biggest thing might come down to the tires here. Sam Nieto has found himself a pole sitter multiple a time this season. Jacob Fife, while not quite, has been benefiting from these short runs, and as you can see him lunging down on Don Stevenson, his forte is in making those early jumps, lap in, lap out, and that's what he's doing now to cement himself up inside the top 10 and maybe take it to the top 5, but there's no guarantee after that 30-40 lap point that Jacob Fife is going to be one of the best in the business for the later stage of the event. Brad Patton, though, has been almost the exact opposite. And for Brad, in all honesty, he gains the most from getting those long runs because he gets on a cycle once again through the green flag pit stop and has himself even further of an advantage. Here now, he's got, once again, the 97 of Nicholas Ward to block. Let's ride on board with the 97 as he pursues Brad Patton for the 4th position. Coming hot out the corner, Brad Patton going to have the clear advantage now heading out of that tunnel turn and making his way to it once again. The momentum has been in the favor of not Nicholas Ward, as you can see there. Jacob Fife making a quick pass as he goes through 2, and now he's going to bring with him perhaps a few other drivers in a bundle. Nick Tarbuck there with Don Stevenson. Don up top, he's got it fast, and Galen Gidman has it down on the bottom, and he's looking to make another pass here in the number 47. Nick Tarbuck able to prevail, and it looks like Galen Gidman might be coming with. At the line, 25 laps in out of 80, making the lap number 26 here. Double filing, going to be all the way down low. Ross Cato and Galen Gidman together. Here's the number 12 machine of Ross Cato, who's been quiet so far tonight, but let's talk about that 12 team once more. Overall, not the standout team that we saw from 2023, but quietly inside the top 10 has been the move of perhaps the season, making the opportunities happen in the back half on up. Now, we don't see him running up in the front consistently as we did previously, but of course, the most important thing, collecting those points. His most standout event of the season, perhaps the All-Star race, coming home with a podium. But when we talk about move of the season for Ross Cato, I think it comes down to shifting mentality and looking for those consistent runs and trying to find a top 10 streak. I believe his highest top 10 streak of the season, 8 consecutive races. And then from there, further on out, well, he's found himself overall top 15 driver at the very worst of it, as a few drivers decide to come down and in here and now. There's going to be Kyle Cooper making his way, an 11-lap sin. He does not appear to have any substantial damage. Nevertheless, the number 73 has made his way through, and we'll see whether or not this is the start of a little bit of a trend down on pit road, because Kyle making it in 27-lap sin seems rather early. We'll see if that's going to work out, though, because the 73 just dropped down. It looks like nobody else went with. Maybe a chance now to do something different, but 27 laps in out of 80. We're only on the 12th lap of this stint, and every driver knows we've got quite a lot of time here. The number 9 machine of Galen Gidman, well, he's got himself now just ahead of Ross Cato. Take a look off the back end, and you'll see what's developing here with this battle. Notably, it looks like now for Ross Cato making it down the main straightaway, the corners, he lunges into him early and then tries to reel it back in on exit, but Galen maybe prioritizing getting it off the corner faster. That's what kept him in position. .29 laps in out of 80 so far. Number 9 machine Galen Gidman looks like he's kept himself just ahead of Ross Cato, and both drivers were driving the circuit just a little bit different. Overall, it looks like for the time being, they've kept themselves relatively similar in lap times. 56.874 compared to a .966 for these two drivers. Gidman and Cato respectively, they are only within about a few hundredths of each other, as now Nicholas Moore is going to be on the agenda to pass. The 97 goes up topside, and it looks like Galen Gidman, he gets loose. Can't quite get it there. Ross Cato going to be just within the mix as well, and now Ross might be putting down pressure with Don Stevenson entering as well. Coming through this time by 29 laps in out of 80 and working down the back straightaway all over again. It looks like here for, of course, the Fast Forward Esports crew, they've got themselves a chance perhaps to make things happen. They haven't been all too up front so far tonight, but now up to 9th, and in this pack, Galen Gidman and Nicholas Ward both might be battling each other and distracting themselves from the field at large. Don Stevenson and Chuck Sweeting right there too, and then you have the developing battle for the 4th position. 51 machine of Tom Wetmore with Jacob Fife there in 5th. 6th spot Nick Tarbuck, and then we've got 2nd spot Sam Nieto. It's up and down from 2nd down to about 6th here, going back to Nick Tarbuck anyway. And with Nick now getting up inside the top 5, it looks like another good night in store for the number 4 team. Jacob Fife inside the top 10. Now moving up to the top 5 himself. Overall on the night, Jacob has found himself a mover of absolutely no positions, while the drivers in front and behind him have been the biggest movers. Brad Patton up 15, Nick Tarbuck up 14. Jacob has stayed exactly where he's been from the jump. He started here, he's looking to stay here, and if we take a ride on board with him, we'll see why he's been so consistent. Fife's lap times have been consistent with those up in front of him for the good majority of the day. That time, by as a matter of fact, he was quicker than leader Michael Araya by just 1/100th of a second. And that speed has been adequate enough for him to remain in contention from the jump here. And even if he's not going to be up there with leader Araya, which admittedly no other driver has been, he's been there battling for second and keeping himself on the outer circle of this lead fight. Now Nick Tarbuck going to move up into the top 5 himself, taking it down and in through Milwaukee. It looks like Jacob Fife is going to give him enough room, and Tarbuck going to get a little bit loose on the back end, but he does not fall out of control. At the line again, Tom Wetmore going to be in second now. Sam Nieto drops back to third, and Brad Patton there in fourth. Cutting low and going down to the inside, here comes Brad Patton, and it looks like all of a sudden the thunder that Sam Nieto had, it's been stolen. Brad Patton not able to complete that pass here, but clearly it's going to be a Sam Nieto sandwich. He finds himself in between Wetmore and Patton. Both of these drivers here having a little bit of trouble trying to work around the number 2. Wetmore eventually able to get there. However, Nieto not going to make it easy on Brad Patton, who lies just behind. Brad right now has been on the charge since the very beginning, up a total now of 16 positions, and Jacob Fife, yet another that has been passed by him. Looks like now Brad's only got himself 2 drivers to get through in this fight, and then, of course, the final driver to get through of all drivers, leader Michael Laraya. Not going to be easy, but Michael Laraya is up there and ahead, and it looks like for the number 44 team, he's there and alone, a 1.5 second advantage over the remainder of the field. There's Wetmore, just about exiting the turn by the time Michael Araya halfway down the back straightaway. Sam Nieto going to be third, Brad Patton fourth. The closest battle on the circuit is a little bit further behind, and that comes down to Don Stevenson and Galen Gidman. Now, Gidman going to be in the 10th spot with Stevenson there in 11th. The number 9 machine looks like now in the RSVP colors, he's been able to keep himself just within the confines of the top 10 bout, even though see Chuck Sweeting there and Ross Cato ahead. These two groups have separated once more. Cato going to be up top, Chuck Sweeting going up high with them, and hoping not to replicate the incident that happened with Ethan Lane. Both of which now going to be coming through together. Side by side, 2 by 2, and the Andretti Road 200 progresses now without incident. Sweeting going to get down to the bottom of Trenton here. Ross Cato gives him enough room yet again, and Galen Gidman is watching aboard now. He's got the best seat in the house watching this fight progress, and it might be enough side-by-side racing to get that number 9 back together in the fights. 9 of Galen Gidman, the 75 of Chuck Sweeting. Overall tonight, talking about their gains and losses, well, Chuck Sweeting's made up 9 positions. Galen Gidman is where he started from the very beginning of this race. So the tale of 2 completely different events, because Galen Gidman, of course, has been exactly where he started all night long, and Chuck Sweeting has come from the back of the field and kept top 10 pace. Now as they clash for the first time, another set of drivers clash, and Brad Patton looks like he just got by the number 36 of Jacob Fife, and Brad Patton now in the move for 4th will bring Nick Tarbuck with them in the battle again. Jacob going to hang tough here. Nick Tarbuck just behind. And it looks like as the top 3 begin to get away from this second battle, Sam Nieto and Tom Wetmore are not done yet. Sam Nieto has found himself now in a good position to stay right behind Tom Wetmore. If he wants to save some fuel, maybe be a little bit aggressive, less aggressive, shall we say, with that tire wear, well, he's got a chance to do so right about now. And 36 laps in out of 80, it looks like it's the perfect opportunity here for Sam Nieto to conserve what he's got under the tank. 22 laps in out of 40 for the stint that we predict anyway, which means pit road will become very busy by about lap number 60 here tonight, expecting to see most drivers come down and in at that point, and that's when things will get rather exciting on the track. Don't anticipate to see many drivers coming in early, much like Kyle Cooper did, and now just about ahead of Kyle Cooper over, you see the battle between John Giervon and Sean Kalist. John gets by Sean, and that's going to be the move for 17th on the track as we take a look right back up. Galen Gidman now going to be passed by Cody Smith. That's the move for 11th. And it looks like now Gidman going to drop out of the top dozen, and he's going to move back behind Cody Smith as we take a look on the 18's back end. Cody Smith now 38 laps in, making his way back up into 10th, with Galen Gidman now dropping just behind. A tenth of a second behind Ross Cato now. There's going to be Nick Ward, both of which have been all throughout this entire stint in the bottom half of the top 10, and now looks like Cato has been making his way up. Last time we checked on Ross, well, he was in 10th. Now he's there in 7th. Sam Nieto is now going to be coming down to pit road, and here comes with them Tom Wetmore. Big trouble. Nieto, Wetmore going to be sliding down to pit road as also Bobby Terrell comes in. Yellow flag does not fly, but that's bad news for the number 2 and 51. Now, let's take a look at why that happened here. The number 51 of Tom Wetmore looked to be coming down and in. He was hitting the brakes and jamming it, and then Nieto makes contact. Both drivers slide. Contact, indeed. The second time gets them both up in the wall. Galen Gidman barely avoids. Bobby Terrell barely avoids, and that's going to be 4 drivers involved, not by contact, but by avoidance, and both Wetmore and Nieto, their nights are going to be significantly hampered as a result. Nick Tarbuck is going to be able to get away from that one, as are the majority of the leaders of the pack, and this will bring Jacob Fife up to second, and this gives Fife the opportunity to go for his best run of the season. Completely changing the playoff landscape? No, but it does change the podium landscape tonight, and there could be implications for Sam Nieto as well. Mind you, he is not locked in. And now a driver like Brad Patton has a chance to make up major points here as he finds himself currently running in the 3rd spot. As it stands, Sam Nieto is going to be back on the way, but 2 laps down, he's still on pit road, whereas Tom Wetmore is back driving with significant front-end damage. As we saw, he had damage like that in the Magic Mile. And once again, Tom Wetmore running with a hampered motor at the middle of the field. Don't think there's a chance to see him up front again. Now that we've gotten to the halfway point, 41 laps in out of 80, Michael Araya leads, and Brad Patton has gone down to pit road. It looks like drivers are deciding to take it a little bit easier on this run more than anything else, and trying to split it right down the middle, with their second pit stops coming rather early. For Araya, 40 laps remain on his campaign throughout Pocono, and we'd love to have a lot of more viewers on FTN joining the sim racing fun. For 16 years and counting, iRacing Motorsport Simulations has given us a reason to provide the best sim racing content as a driver, a broadcaster, and everything in between. And there's a reason that more than 100,000 users daily trust iRacing for their simulator racing experience with disciplines licensed from the world's top motorsport sanctioning bodies such as NASCAR, Indycar, Formula One, Rallycross divisions, IMSA, World Endurance Championship. For decades of history and contemporary motorsport in sim racing form, visit iRacing.com for membership discounts of over 30% or more, as we'll return after the following message from our friends at iRacing.
Racing isn't easy, but experiencing it is. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat with the industry's leading sim racing game. Drive on laser scan replicas of the greatest racing circuits from around the world. Go head-to-head against other drivers chosen by skill-based matchmaking to ensure competitive racing at every level. Compete across all your favorite series. in officially licensed cars engineered to deliver the most accurate driving experience possible. Join a race or host your own with players from across the globe. Race against the computer or in a league with friends. Feel the thrill behind the wheel. Visit iRacing.com.
Now, leaders coming down to pit road, Michael O'Ryan Company coming through after 28 laps on this run. And with 38 laps to go, we'll see whether or not that can be stretched as the 44 comes in. So does Don Stevenson, Cody Smith, Bobby Ross, Nick Tarbuck. And here goes again the number 44 of Michael O'Ryan, and he puts himself now in the picture once again as your race leader. Now, net race leader anyway, because Chuck Sweeting and Nicholas Ward, they have gotten out of pit road. However, they are in a slightly different cycle, having come in about 4 and 5 laps in previously. Nicholas Ward is going to be second, Chuck Sweeting overall on top, and Michael O'Ryan now has to, of course, come through and chase both drivers down to reclaim the overall official race lead. Now it's going to be Brad Patton scored in net second, and then you're going to see Galen Gibbon in net third, Jacob Fife in net fourth. However, we'll see whether or not Nicholas Ward and Chuck Sweeting can hang on to the spots they've got, because they are officially in the lead, but we are almost entirely counting out what they've got now because of those older sets of rubber. Now, if they are to do 28 lap stints for the rest of this race, that would mean one more pit stop is still necessary, which would mean that we are about a quarter of the way through the runs of your top 2 drivers, and they are already at a massive disadvantage. Because drivers like Michael O'Ryan have only just begun, and these drivers are a quarter way through the way they've gotten onto this stint. It means they're going to be much slower, lap in, lap out. We'll get the official comparison numbers this time by. However, it looks like already running 54-second laps, which is about a second slower than the quickest lap times run in the field today. Nicholas Ward's quickest time, a 53.17 overall. His last lap time was about a second slower, coming in at a 54.078. So it's clear as day right now that Nicholas Ward is one of the many showing signs of massive tire degradation, and at time by, Michael O'Ryan was quicker by a total of 0.7 of a second. At that rate, he would get up to Nicholas Ward within 2 laps and get up to Chuck Sweeting within 3. We'll see if that comes to fruition, though, as he now goes by the lapper of Randy Fiash and makes another move. 36 laps remain, and still less than halfway of this race is left, but there's still a load of time in between now and the checkered flag. Another battle progressing again. Bobby Terrell and Ross Cato. 9th is going to be Ross right now. Bobby Terrell is in 8th, and currently Ross falling back 2 spots from where he was prior to the pit cycle, and we're going to now find out whether or not he could reclaim those positions and maybe put himself back in contention for a top 5. Just 2 spots ahead of Ross Cato right now. As you look beyond Bobby Terrell, there's also Nick Tarbuck. Now, Ross looks to be going for the move this time by and ducking down the inside of the number 14. Nick Tarbuck is in 7th yet again, and he, Jacob Fife, among others, were in that battle. They are fighting to try to take the race lead just a few laps before we went down to pit road. Maybe not the race lead necessarily, but they were in the fight for second and were there fiercely competing against each other, going side by side and toe to toe. But right now, it looks like Nick Tarbuck going to be falling further back, even on a guy like Jacob Fife. And Jacob right now going to have himself the advantage over the number 4, running at his own rate here in the Pro Powder and Paint number 36 team. Looks like they've been able to hang on for a 6th place spot at the very least, but the top 5 will not come with the benefits of being right up there with a guy like Brad Patton. Patton has overall gotten 2 seconds ahead of Jacob Fife off that last pit cycle, and now Nicholas Ward and Chuck Sweeting are being caught up to, and rapidly Michael O'Ryan is there, and now he's going to be looking for positions very, very soon. We'll see what Nicholas Ward can do to at least defend for a few laps' time. But it looks like time is up already, and Michael Araya going to put a rather short leash on the temporary race leaders. Chuck Sweeting getting those laps led, but if Nicholas Ward falls quickly, it's all but over for the man in that number 75, and he will have to give up the top spot in due time, lest he has a little bit more pace in him that we haven't seen. Michael Araya going to be tucked right in there with the 97 of Nicholas Ward. Now it's going to be Araya cutting down and under with 33 laps remaining. Nice and easy here for the number 44. He's going to smoothly and slowly take himself into the bottom side of the track. And it looks like as he comes off of Trenton, he's going to be dead even heading into the tunnel turn. Ryan now going to have no choice but to send it a little bit further into turn number 2. And now that he has the full-on advantage, he's got his sights set on Chuck Sweeting, looking to take the lead back before the 30-lap-to-go marker. The gap is 0.4 of a second. Michael Araya now inching a little bit closer, right on board with the 44, as he has his sights set on taking the race lead back just behind Chuck Sweeting. Michael Araya now looking low. It's going to be a side-by-side fight, and you can see he's got clean air heading to the tunnel turn, and the advantage is his. Cutting down low in the 2 and taking the race lead, Michael Araya up in front. Now advantageous with 32 laps remaining. Michael having an opportunity now to take the race lead solely is going to bring Brad Patton and Jacob Fife up. It looks like Fife now going to be coming through with the number 36 machine in tow, but Brad Patton will be the next driver to try to knock down both Ward and Sweeting, who now have more than 10 laps down their run. It's clearly a massive disadvantage with respect to tire here. Now looks like Ward gets by Chuck Sweeting. Sweeting does have an older lap set than Chuck Sweeting, of course, had previously. 12 laps on his stint now. And it looks like Nicholas Ward with 11 does have a little bit more speed in him, and so he makes it right by. Nick Tarbuck going to be in 7th right now with Galen Gibman in 6th. Gap between the two of which is 16/100ths of a second. And it looks like the RSVP number 9 able to fare well enough to get into 7th again, and might be moving back to that 7th spot exactly, so long as Nick Tarbuck has his way with them. Tucking down to the inside line, Nick Tarbuck now going a little bit further deep, and the number 4 taking it out of the final corner once again there in 6th. 30 laps remaining this time by, 1/4 of a second to spare between Ward now and Brad Patton, and so the top 10 is changing and changing quick. Let's take a look at your top 10 from top to bottom. Race leader Michael Araya, who could be en route to the fast lane to victory lane. He's got himself up ahead and has led the majority of this race from the start. Nicholas Ward going to be 2nd. It's the highest position he's running all night long, but Brad Patton is looking to change that. He's in 3rd right now, and coming through the tunnel turn, he's got himself focused in on when he can make the pass and move up to the runner-up position for his own. Chuck Sweeting was just leading the race, and now you can see what happened to Chuck is having to Ward. And it looks like now Patton clearly makes it by for 2nd. Chuck Sweeting currently is in 4th. Jacob Fife will conclude the top 5 with Nick Tarbuck 6th, Galen Gibman 7th, and Ross Cato 8th, with 9th being Bobby Terrell, and the 10th spot going to Cody Smith. Now Cody for Next Level Racing concludes the top 10, and as it's been all season long, Next Level Racing provides high-quality sim racing performance products for dedicated sim racers who deserve nothing but the best. 2022 champion Cody Smith has been the brand ambassador now for Next Level Racing for over a year and a half, and he's one of the many drivers proud to say that Next Level Racing has provided a positive boost to this league. Series champions for this year's Integrity Ignite and Octane Series will be given a $2,000 sim rig courtesy of Next Level Racing. Visit nextlevelracing.com and use promo code INTEGRITY for 10% off every checkout when you use their website 4 hardware products. Be right back after this message from our friends at Next Level Racing. With 29 laps to go, you are watching the Andretti Road 200 live on FTN here in the Integrity OCTANE Series. "27 laps remaining. Nicholas Ward remains on the podium here, but Brad Patton has gotten up to second. Overall, the gains have been massive for the number 7 team, and Patton has moved up from 19th to second for a plus 17 days so far. Chuck Sweeting up 13 from 18th to 5th, up a total of 14, 20th to 6th for Nick Tarbuck, and it's been all about the big movers today. In all honesty, usually we say the top 10 is usually dominated by drivers who kicked off the race in the top 10 with good qualifying positions. Tonight, that is not the case, because if you look at the top 10 right now, only 4 drivers started within it, and that would be 3rd place Don Stevenson, who's down in 10th. Then you look at 4th place Jacob Fife, he started in 5th. Then you have 8th place Nicholas Ward, who's currently in 3rd, and leader Michael Araya, who started in 2nd and has remained in the lead since that point. So otherwise, most of the drivers who have came into the top 10 started further back, and 3rd place right now is going to be Don Stevenson, who's down to 10th. He started 3rd anyway. Starting 7th, Bobby Terrell has gone down to 11th. 9th place is where Kyle Gilbert started. He's retired in 20th. 21st is the retiree of Sam Nieto. He started in 6th, and pole sitter tonight, dead last on the finishing order, Ethan Lane, 22nd of all those who registered. Now it looks like Nick Tarbuck going to make it by on the number 75 of Chuck Sweeting. At the same time, now Jacob Fife going to be toe-to-toe with Nicholas Ward, and another move due to be made is going to be done rather quickly here as the number 97 stays up top. Jacob Fife going to be given a little bit more wiggle room, and with 25 to go, now the Pro Powder and Paint Chevrolet is advantageous and moves up firmly inside the podium. Brian McFerrin just went down to pit road with 26 laps on his stint, as did Alan Rawell with 14 on his. 25 laps to go here, and it looks like drivers are making it down to pit road for the final time tonight. If they needed to, now they will. And it looks like for Brian McFerrin, he definitely needed to, because he just took the jump down, and Alan Rawell was the next man who followed him. So with 25 laps remaining, you can see now, working down the front straightaway, Brad Patton, the 2nd place driver, but he's 3 seconds back now on Michael Araya, and it looks like there's very little chance for him to catch up now without a mistake being made for Michael Araya, which has remained so infrequent throughout his series and his season here. Michael Araya could be en route for his 7th victory of the campaign, and it goes to show how consistent he's been. For him to only be the 2nd winningest driver in the season is quite remarkable. 7 wins. He is now overall 2nd on the all-time wins list, and looking to keep on growing his expertise in the Octane Series. The Tuesday night drivers have found dominance in 3 men, and of course, one of which, the number 44 of Michael Araya, now finds himself up and ahead by 3 seconds here. There's Nicholas Ward in 5th, and he's got himself now just behind Nick Tarbuck. Nicholas duo 4th, 5th for the time being. Tarbuck ahead of Ward, and it looks like for the time being the 97 still dropping back. Slowly but surely, Looks like there's no chance now for the 97 to keep on gaining, but as long as he stays behind these leaders and has Chuck Sweeting as a little bit of a backup, he shouldn't have to worry all too much about losing spots at a rapid rate. 23 laps to go this time by, and Michael Araya finds himself up and ahead with 22 laps to go this time by. Of course, we're going to be cranking it up with our friends at TrackCams22.com. For the highest quality broadcast cameras, whether you're a broadcaster or not, TrackCams for Gourmets provides some of the best iRacing cameras on the market, second to none, with over 100 car and track options. Visit Facebook.com/TrackCams or TrackCams22.com for more information, as we are due to crank it up with 22 laps to go, courtesy of our friends at Track Cams for Gourmets. And so now 18 laps to go, and it's going to be Michael Araya heading down to pit road to end the final pit cycle of the day. Looks like overall 3 stops are going to come into the picture tonight. Much different from what we expected, but given that first pit stop, everything changed, and so Nick Tarbuck going to be given the opportunity to become the provisional race leader with 17 laps to go. Welcome back live on FTN for the final laps of the day. I'm your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing, and if you're just stopping by or you've been with us for a while here, you know one thing, Michael Araya has been end over end the race leader of this race, and he has been dominant. Nick Tarbuck, he's had experience with dominant drivers at 2.5-mile tracks before. You want to know where he got that experience? He got it last night, and he got it almost back to victory lane based on a very risky strategy call he made last night in Indianapolis, which locked him in for a 3rd place finish. Now, tonight, it looks like he will make it to the end of this race without having to worry about fuel, but he had something happen which came down to the wire. It was a fuel call. He went into pit road earlier than anyone else on the circuit and decided to do so, which gave him a 1-lap advantage in very quick laps relative to the rest of the field. He was racing against Thomas Bressi for the win, and Thomas found himself the leader for 70-plus laps at that point, and this was the final pit stop with about 25 laps to go. Nick decided to go in early and got himself the race lead, and for about 10 to 15 laps, he definitely made it known he was there trying to get to the checkered flag. Unfortunately for Nick, on the very last lap of the race, he came through, and he unfortunately indeed lost fuel in the final corner. So he had to settle for 3rd place, but he definitely showed that he can make those risky strategies work out, although it looks like for now, Michael Araya is far and away ahead, and it looks like there's really nobody that can stop him, maybe except Brad Patton. Brad right now is 2 seconds ahead with 15 laps to go, and he finds himself up on top of the board with 4 laps older tire. Maybe it's enough for him to hang on to the end of this race. Maybe not as the leader, but he definitely has a chance to stay there for the podium, as Michael Araya is now going to be chasing him down with 15 laps remaining. It's going to be Nicholas Ward in net 3rd, and Chuck Sweeting in net 4th, and going down the order, loads of familiar faces with still 16 drivers left on the lead lap. Overall, now Bobby Ross is going to be the overall race leader. He's decided not to come down to pit road, and he's kept himself on top, and it looks like he's bound to eventually, and he's getting his chance for the first time all night long to lead the way. Very strong at Watkins Glen, running as high as 2nd, and once again Ross at the front of the field, at the stripe. 14 laps to go, and Bobby's going to ring it in. For the final time tonight, we'd like to thank Next Level Racing for providing high-quality performance products for the most dedicated to sim racers throughout the virtual motorsport market. Visit nextlevelracing.com for additional information and use code INTEGRITY for 10% off at checkout for all Next Level Racing purchases, as we'll be right back with our final messages of the day. The rest of this broadcast will be brought to you with uninterrupted coverage as you're watching live with now 14 laps to go here in the Andretti Road 200. We'll be right back to finish off our coverage here from Pocono. 12 laps to go, and unlike what we expected, Bobby Ross remains out on the track. Looks like he's going to be trying something completely different from everyone else and is trying to stick it out the rest of the way. We were wondering whether or not anyone would look to make this happen, and it looks like Bobby might just be the man. He's been on a 26-lap stint, which started, give or take, at about lap 37 or so, and it looks like he's decided to keep on going regardless of everyone else on a very nice run here. 69 laps in out of 80, and if anyone's going to pull off the alternate strategy now, there's literally no other driver who could try to go for it besides the number 45. However, now Bobby going to be slowing down rapidly and committing himself to pit road. That's going to be his outlook, and so Bobby's going to have to give up the race lead, and again, it's going to be in the hands of Brad Patton. Patton's coming up now on the lapper of John Girvon. Then you have Michael Araya coming further on back. A lot of fan support tonight in the chat room for Bobby Ross, and we'd like to thank everyone who stopped by tonight, including Vinex, John Steele, Nancy Wetmore, Eden C, and it looks like, of course, all the fans who've been watching aboard who haven't left a message. We'd love to hear from you all night long. Keeps it all exciting here in the broadcast booth. And Michael Araya, he's had his fair share of fan support throughout the year, and it's propelled him to 6 guaranteed wins so far out of what could be more than 7 on the season. This could be his 7th if he locks it down and makes up a half second on the man just ahead of him. That's Brad Patton, and Patton now leads 70 laps in out of 80. So 7/8 of the way here, Brad has been able to put himself in firm contention. It has not been easy for Brad. He started tonight in the 20th spot, and he's had to make his way up from there. Unbelievable job he's done so far to make it up from within the confines of barely the top 20 to the race lead with only one caution in between, and he made quite a lot of time up in the first stint to begin with, which got him up to the top 10. So now Brad Patton could have a chance to finish it off, but look at how quick Michael Arias coming through. Michael is on a 4-lap younger set of tire, and it's clear as day that he's got the advantage. Now, Brad's been on his run for 11 laps, and Michael for 7. Coming through the tunnel turn, and the difference, it is clear. Up top, Michael Araya still has more speed, and maybe going to be boxed out just a bit, but it's not enough. Araya takes back the race lead, and now Brad Patton maybe one last lunge, but he knows now it's quite unrealistic for him to get back up in the picture. And so Michael Araya now going to fade out, and he's got the race lead while once again dropping back. There goes Brad Patton. Brad now going to be in second, and he's still losing all that time. Really tricky circumstance now for Brad Patton to be in. Admittedly, now he's got a little bit more of a buffer with Nicholas Ward behind him in third. But I don't think there's anything else that can be done because Jacob Fife is now coming through. Maybe you look a little bit further back. There's a guy like Nick Tarbuck or even Chuck Sweeting. All of these drivers are still pushing at their hardest, trying to find a way to make it around. But they have yet to do so, and it looks like Jacob Fife might be the first of which, who's on a younger set of rubber. He's got only 8 laps under him so far. Nick Tarbuck has himself only 7 laps of tire on him. So he does not have a lot of tire wear just yet, and he has the opportunity to maybe push a little bit further to enter the top 5. He'd have to make it by Chuck Sweeting, Nicholas Ward, and Brad Patton to cement himself for a chance in the podium. Gets by now. It looks like Chuck Sweeting is blinking, but that's not an official pass. It's more so internet troubles making it look different. Jacob Fife now can be cutting down on the inside. The 97 machine of Ward goes up to the top here, and they go 2 by 2 now. It looks like Nick Tarbuck is still going to be following Chuck Sweeting, but as they go side by side into the tunnel turn, Jacob Fife will be on the bottom, and it'll be Ward up high. Looks like the top side will not prevail, and Jacob Fife rather easily enters the podium. Now with his sights set on making it up to second, let's ride on board briefly here with Jacob Fife as he has now clean track ahead of him to make it up to Brad Patton. Fife so far sees that the gap between he and Brad Patton is 3.2 seconds. And still shrinking. Brad Patton right now going to be just about a second and a third off of Michael Araya, and although he finds himself firmly in second for now, Jacob Fife is clearly quicker, and that time by gained 0.2 of a second on the number 7. We'll see what he does right now with the number 33 of John Giervon in tow, and across the stripe again, he's going to gain now 0.3 of a second. So Giervon definitely as quick as they come, but as a lapper anyway, that's the standard here. Now Jacob Fife, that much quicker. John right now is 12 laps on his rubber, so it looks like even though he's trying his hardest, he's got a much harder time. Of course, now trying to manage it as the tires continue to age. Nick Tarbuck is up to 4th now in a 10-lap set of rubber. Very tricky now for the number 4 machine and Nick Tarbuck to make up 1 or 2 more, but it looks like Jacob Fife might be a realistic pass if he really puts his mind to it. He already came up on John in the number 33, so take a look at that. He'll cut down and under and make another move, and here comes Fife in the number 36, but he might not be coming quick enough to avoid the fact Nick Tarbuck is next. Let's see what happens now for Nick Tarbuck. 0.8 of a second behind Jacob Fife with 5 laps to go. For reference, he'd have to make up some 0.2 of a second per lap to have a safe opportunity at passing Jacob. He's now gotten it down to a 0.7 of a second deficit, so it looks like he'll have a clear opportunity for him to make something work out. The Impala number 4 machine has, of course, been on the back end of the field tonight for the majority as well. He and Brad Patton started alongside each other in 19th and 20th, and now they'll be up to the front of the field 2nd and 3rd together if Jacob Fife moves out the way. But to make a move out of the way with the number 36, you gotta race him and you gotta have the speed for it. And I think now Jacob has to accept the fact that only half a second behind a very formidable driver in the number 4 of Nick Tarbuck here, who has made it closer than anyone else could have imagined. Additionally, now it's going to be Ross Cato battling Chuck Sweeting. This is for 6th, and it looks like Cato tonight has been able to stay inside the confines of the bottom half of the top 10 while still shining. While top 5 might not be the most realistic outcome, he's coming up here on Chuck Sweeting and making it even closer than we expected with 6th spot on the line. 4 laps to go. Nick Tarbuck has 3.5 seconds to get up to Jacob Fife, and if he gets up there, he'll be locked into the podium, even if he can't get up to Brad Patton, who now has 2 seconds ahead of both drivers. It looks like Patton not losing enough time to fall out of 2nd, but Jacob Fife definitely losing enough time to have the potential to fall out of 3rd. Coming across the line again to make it 3 laps to go. Nick Tarbuck tucked into Jacob Fife's back end here, and he'll come loose. He'll come right down and under into Trenton once again into the first turn. Now Tarbuck with the opportunity to lunge into the opening corner, and he will take it. Fife going to be up on the high side, neck and neck and toe to toe. The number 4 has a little bit less momentum maybe coming out of the corner, but the tunnel turn will be the dictating factor. Side by side, it looks like staying right to the quarter panel. That's all Jacob Fife can muster now, and it looks like now here's Nick Tarbuck cutting low, side by side as they've been now for the better part of the lap. Tarbuck has the opportunity to wheel it down to the bottom and make the advantage, all about cutting that distance, using the low line into Milwaukee. The number 4 team, they put on tires 2 laps later, and those 2 laps have made a difference. Taking the lesson from last night where he went for the very extreme undercut, tonight he decided to go a little bit longer on the stint before pit road, and that's brought him up to this point 79 laps in, 2 laps to go. Jacob Fife looking for a bit of a switchback maneuver, tries to cut low, can't find room. Tarbuck going to defend but move about a groove and a half higher, and that's all he can muster up himself, but it looks like that's all he needs to put up with. And so now Tarbuck going to be in 2nd, and 2nd clearly, whereas Michael Araya is your far and away race leader. Now he's got a lap and a turn to go to seal the deal, and we'll see whether or not Michael can come home and away with his 7th victory on the campaign here in Pocono. Down the Long Pond straightaway one more time. White flag is out. This race is official. And the white flag now going to be raised up in the air. Brad Patton going to be second, Nick Tarbuck in third, Jacob Fife there in fourth, and it looks like the closest battle now comes down to Don Stevenson and Galen Gidman. They're going to be fighting for ninth now as the front straightaway is fully single file. And it looks like maybe Don Stevenson is the last driver with a chance to make a pass. He'll be coming down and low on Gidman, and you can see he's hauling out of the first corner through the tunnel turn. There might be a big chance for him to slide down low through two. We'll see whether or not he gets that chance as he comes out of the corner. But for Michael Araya, 6 wins so far this season. The championship leader with the win tonight can lock up the regular season title and move in as the top seed to the championship when we come back from our Labor Day break. As he makes it out of our third and final corner and comes down at full blast through the Long Pond straightaway, Michael Araya has won once again. Checkered flag will fall for the 44. It's Laraya's 7th victory of his rookie season, and Michael Araya returns to the point. Victory here in the Andretti Road 200. Brad Patton, Nick Tarbuck make up the bottom steps of the podium, and it's Laraya with the win. Fourth place goes to Jacob Fife, Nicholas Ward in 5th, Ross Cato 6th, and Chuck Sweeting then in 7th after the podium sitters. Cody Smith finishes 8th with Don Stevenson 9th, and Galen Gidman hangs on to finish off the top 10, but Don Stevenson makes that final move stick. After all, 11th place is going to go to Bobby Terrell with Bobby Ross 12th, Brian McFerrin 13th, Kyle Cooper 14th, and Alan Rowell 15th. It'll be Tom Wetmore 16th with 1 lap down, Sean Kalis 1 lap down as well, John Giervon in 18th, and Randy Fiash in 19th. Your 3 retirees go as follows: Kyle Gilbert in 20th, 21st and Sam Nieto, and from the pole to last, 22nd, Ethan Lane. And now the number 44 is due to burn down the house, and he's got the checkered flag. It's time to tear it down once again. Win number 7 for Michael Araya. Well, a quick burnout there from Michael Araya, but the celebration, I think it came from a lack of energy after what was overall a long haul. 80 laps, and he got it done, leading a majority of the way. Might have not led everything, might have not had the pole, but those are very minor blemishes when you consider the fact that he won and came home with the top prize of all, victory lane. It is his tonight. Michael Araya, a winner once again. Let's get a word tonight from the number 44 alongside the rest of your podium sitters. We'll be speaking to Michael Araya very shortly, as it does not appear he is currently available for an interview. He should be stepping by and coming our way as soon as possible. Looking for official confirmation that Michael Araya is available for an interview. We will speak to all your top 3 drivers. If possible, we got Brad Patton, and then to finish it all off, of course, you saw that battle, Nick Tarbuck and Jacob Fife, and Tarbuck, he got the better there at the very end of Jacob and came home with the 3rd position. Michael Araya will be the first man that we speak to after a fantastic performance tonight, and there he is, standing by in the waiting room. Let's bring in your 7-time race winner. Here in Pocono, you might have not had the pole position, Michael, but you were dominant from the start, and no matter what happened on track, it seemed like you had the pace to beat the field from end to end. Victory lane is yours here in Pocono, Michael. How does it feel?
Well, tonight it feels a little odd. I definitely feel awful about basically costing Ethan a good finish tonight. I just made a mistake coming out of turn 4, overdid it, bringing the car out to the wall, trying to get all I could, and ended up scraping the wall. And unfortunately, with these cars, As soon as you get in the wall, it's almost like you're hitting glue. You just can't get off it, and but at the same time, I thought that was maybe my best move, just to hold it against the wall. And hopefully Ethan would be able to dive under me and go about his way. Unfortunately, he was just too close behind me, where he's also pushing out against the wall, and it was just really poor timing. So I definitely feel bad for costing him a good finish tonight, and I don't want to win races like that, because he's honestly the barometer in this league. So it would have been interesting to see if I could have held him off tonight, but besides that, it was still a good performance. You still had to execute the whole way through, and I think I caught some good luck there before the green flag pit stops, because I think, looking at the scoring here, some of my other close competition might have had some trouble here. So at that point, I guess it was just meant to be tonight.
And one of the bigger incidents on the day, you mentioned it there, you and Ethan Lane, and we caught it on video, but it looks like both of you went to the corner perhaps a little too hot and both got a piece of the wall there. Could you walk us through what happened there to begin with?
Yeah, so Ethan and I mean, we felt pretty equally matched. As far as pace, I felt like he would beat me one lap, I'd beat him the next. And my thought process was, you know, if I can take the lead, let me take it. Let me get the clean air. So I went for it early, and he kind of rode in behind me there, but I could tell he was going to be very strong on the long run there, and so I was trying to see what I could do to, if I could get away from him, if anything. So honestly, it was just trying to get all you could get off of turn three there, and kind of just misjudged it with how close I was towards the wall. And that's all it took. As soon as I made a little bit of contact, I was just sucked right into the wall there, and uh, everything happened really quick. But I could see behind me, he was pretty close to my mirror. So if I tried to yank it right off the wall, that could have made things worse. So um, at that point, I was just hoping, you know what, let me just hold it against the wall, and hopefully he can cut underneath me. But I got to look back at the replay there and really analyze what happened. But he must have kind of just followed me right into it too, which is really easy to do when you're behind somebody real close. You kind of just lose sight of where you're at on the track and certain markers. So I think that's what happened.
And it looks like despite that minor slip up early on of the way, you seem practically flawless through and through with the rest of this race execution wise. You had yourself pretty well balanced when it comes to tire strategy tonight, which seemed to matter an awful lot, fighting up against Brad Patton there to officially seal the deal with the win. How was the tire degradation throughout the race? Because we saw several seconds of lap time slow down as the race went on, but what was it like when it comes to the feeling inside the cockpit?
Yeah, so tonight, with the way the setup was, you're really fighting tight on entry car and loose off. So it was all about managing the right front tonight. You definitely wanted to be aware of your entry angle into the corners, and when you were starting to brake. If you were overdoing it as far as charging the corners, you're certainly going to beat up that right front. So it was just being mindful of that. And luckily, there, once we got going green, after my mishap there, I was able to stretch my lead out to a little bit over a second there, which is pretty significant at this place. And I was able to maintain that. And so once we got to the point where we were running out of fuel, I had a little bit of a buffer to play with there, and so I could stay out a little bit longer compared to the rest of the field, and that just kind of compounded with a tire advantage towards the end of the race. But with how things kind of played out as far as fuel cycle there, I couldn't stay out all the way as far as that last sequence there, because I was going to give up way too much time on the track with some guys pinning before me. So really, I was just minded my relative there, and as soon as I saw some of the folks in the podium there peel off the pit road, I knew that's when I had to come in. So, really just about, again, not making any major mistakes and managing your pace, and just overall execution.
And tonight, the execution on point for the 44 crew. Michael Araya, checkered flag is yours for the 7th time this season, and pending official points tally, we believe you have also locked up the regular season championship on that note as well. So I'm sure your eyes are set next on the playoff picture. How does it feel now with all the security you've got going into the most important races on the schedule?
Oh, it feels really good. Again, as I mentioned in previous weeks, with how close the competition can be at times, you really can't afford to make mistakes in this league. And so I look at, the next handful of races coming up as just, again, a test of what I need to do in the playoffs, just not making any major mistakes, qualifying well, staying near the front, and making sure that I don't take myself out as far as, wrong strategy calls or anything of the sort. So really just continue what I'm doing. I don't really feel like I need to change much here. I feel like there's certain tracks though compared to some of my competition I got to work on a little bit more, but I feel like the tracks that are a mile and a half and longer, I really have something figured out here. So feels really good to lock up the regular season championship here. Just feel like with overall how consistent my season's been, it's well deserved in my book, and I'm really happy that I've been able to do so well with these cars.
And tonight, of course, a show of many races you've put together. The Gen 4s coming almost naturally to the 44 team, and Michael Araya responsible for that success. If you have any final shout-outs you'd like to make, the floor is yours.
As always, David, I'm going to give a shout out to you for putting on the broadcast. Of course, give a shout out to my sponsor, Sim Speed Shop, for being on board the car, and of course, all the admins for running IRL here. Again, another clean, respectful race, and a mistake on my end. I hate to bring out cautions. I luckily don't do that often, but it was one of those nights tonight where I did, and it kind of just played in my favor. I really got lucky there tonight.
All things considered, luck or not, Michael, you come away with another victory, and tonight, one of the big ones here at a big track at the Pocono Raceway. We thank you once again for your time.
All right. Thank you.
And so with Michael on the move, we'll bring your second place driver in who got it done tonight from all the way back in 19th on the grid. Matter of fact, 19th and 20th come home second and third today, and the back of the grid doing wonders. And Brad Patton, the first of the two who came from the tail end all the way up. Brad, you worked miracles on the strategy, and definitely a turnaround from what we saw at Watkins Glen. A massive success of a race, I'd say, when it comes to the way you manage things. Runner-up finish. What was it like out there in Pocono?
Pocono and I never get along. I mean, the result says different, but I cannot stand this track. So to come out second place, I had to have a little bit of strategy there. I tried everything I could to on that first run to get up in the top 10, which I mean, I was close to it. Then the caution came out, and it felt like a completely different car after that. So basically the strategy was just keep moving forward with a little bit of pace, trying to save the right front because I burned it off. And then once I got up to actually compete in the top 3 or top 4 for a win, I changed up my strategy a little bit, pitted a little bit earlier. Thought I would be able to hold off Michael, but that dude's on another level. Him and Ethan and Nick Terbuck, I don't know how to compete against these boys every week when they just dominate the race. So to finish second, I'm happy, but I'm still kind of upset.
Well, of course, tonight, that winning pace Michael Araya had stunned just about the entire field, but I think the most stunning part for your race was from the second caution onward, you were still making gains. You got up to, or rather, the only caution. You got up to the top 10 before that point, and you still kept climbing, even though you were on a rather risky strategy. You went for 20 laps on that last stint, and nobody else fared close to as good as you, trying the same outlook. So, what led you to that decision, and how did you manage it, especially having to work with those tires for that long?
Coming up to 20 to go there, I mean, it was like 23 to go, and I seen Jacob and I seen Nick, both Nicks, and I seen them. They were flying up on me, and I already could feel the right front going. And Michael was just pulling away. He was pulling away by like 0.3, 0.4 a lap. So I came to the conclusion that, hey, take some tires, go out on the hot lap there, try to make up as much ground as possible, and maybe come out 3 or 4 seconds ahead of Michael and make him work for work for it. But I only came out 2 seconds, and it literally seemed like it only took him 5 laps, and he just caught right up to me, and he made a move on the outside of the tunnel turn that scared the heck out of me. And like I told him, I thought Bobby, because Bobby Ross was leading there, and I was like, all right, I'm going to hold off Michael here so Bobby could try to potentially get the win. And I told Michael, I said, you're lucky, because I was going to block the hell out of you. I'm sitting here, I'm trying to get my first win. I don't want to see him win anymore. So I was going to block him, and I didn't even get the chance. And as soon as he pulled up on the outside of me in the total turn, he was gone. And I was like, well, there goes this race. He's won this.
And still chasing after the first win, as are most of the field. You've gotten close so far this season, and there's one last chance in this regular season before all is said and done. It's going to be, of course, Michigan. So now we come down to our final big circuit, and you seem to have some really good pace of these longer tracks. Do you think, if anything, you can perhaps break that winless streak and come through?
Unlike Pocono, I love Michigan, so I'm going to bowl my best. Dale Jr. here, and maybe we'll have a little bit of a little bit of strategy involved in that. But I can't wait. I love Michigan. I love being able to run the top line. I save my tires that way. We'll see how this car reacts to it. I'm ready. I'm ready to get this thing rolling. Let's get the next week.
And now we're moving on to Michigan in just a week's time. But Brad, tonight, second place on the order. If you have any last messages or shout-outs you'd like to give, we'd love to hear it.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for broadcasting. Thank Integrity for running this. Jacob and the boys, they do a hell of a job with this series. Got to thank my team, Wanagoons Racing. We are now 10 or 12 deep in there. Clutch One. I mean, there's so many sponsors. Maconi Setup Shop. And I'd like to give a personal shout out to one of the guys I served with in the military. He just lost his battle with cancer today, so I'm going to dedicate this second place race to him.
Spirited drive for Brad Patton today, the number 7 team coming home second here from the Pocono Raceway. Brad, we thank you for your time.
Appreciate it, buddy. Have a good night.
And with Brad on the move, the number 7 team, middle of the podium, and Nick Tarbuck, who started all the way back with Brad, 19th and 20th, finishing second and third today. The back of the field had some sort of magic tonight, and we mentioned it with Brad before. Nick, you started quite far behind the rest of the field and still climbed your way back, notably having to go on the upward assault in the last 15 laps to even make it up inside the podium. What a run that was. Third on the day.
Yeah, man, how's it going? Long time no see. No, it was fun, man. It was I started in the back. I'm not sure if I'll do this every week, but it definitely adds another layer to the race for me, I think. And it's always fun to kind of race up through the pack and figure out how to pass people and where what line is the best. I think I did the same thing wherever I did it last time, Nashville, I think, or somewhere other than that. But it helps out, I think, with knowing where to pass and where to kind of defend. So that helped me out later in the run, like you said, when I ended up having a bit of a tire advantage after the last pit cycle, and I was like 9th or 8th, and I was, I knew that I could get up to maybe the top 3, but it's going to take a lot of, a lot of the lessons learned over the course of the race where I was able to pass people coming from the back, and luckily I was, I learned enough to put it all to use, and ended up third again, man. I mean, geez, I tell you what, this podium's feeling pretty good in third spot.
Well, it looks like tonight, not an easy podium to put things together for. We've seen you up there making podiums look easy, but tonight it was all about that uphill, which we mentioned. And it looks like qualifying, of course, not going your way simply because you didn't set a time, but otherwise you were making a really slow charge rather than maybe what you would have expected here. Maybe Pocono, not one of your best tracks. I'd love to hear more about your perspective there before we move on to the latter half.
Yeah, I mean, I think I like Pocono a lot, same way I like Indy. Just the really fast, really, it's very precise to get around these places like this where you're going so fast into the corner and stuff. So it's not like I really thought I was at any sort of disadvantage, I guess. I thought I had a pretty good advantage actually, especially after the Ignite Series race at Pocono. So I figured I might try to, I guess replicate that success. But I could never really get the car to turn in as well as Lariah did. Which, by the way, congrats to him. The class of the field tonight wasn't even close. And congrats to Brad and Fife as well. It's fun racing up with them. But it wasn't like I felt like I had a disadvantage or anything at Pocono. It's just I don't know. I figured I had to learn throughout the race a little bit, and if we can keep doing that and clicking off podiums, I'm not going to complain too much until we get down to the wire at the end of the playoffs.
And of course, now the playoffs on the mind of most every driver. And I'm sure with the way you've been racing as well, you have no reason to really put your mind perhaps all on Michigan. But there's one last chance to come away with the checkered flag in the regular season. Is your focus more so on next week or maybe what's coming in a few weeks down the line?
I think my focus is definitely more on what's down the line. Not that I don't want to do well at Michigan. I think I have a decent chance there. In Indy next week as well, I think I have a pretty decent chance there. But it just remains to be seen. It depends how lucky I get too. I mean, I may go into the next few weeks thinking I could come out with a win and end up getting wrecked. We had a few good drivers tonight that could have easily taken the podium spots away from myself and Brad, maybe even Lariah, and they just got caught up in incidents. So I'm definitely gonna kind of take the next few weeks to relax a little bit and not take things so seriously and get into a good groove. And then when the playoffs start and if things get down to the wire, then it's going to be time to really focus up and really go for it.
Chance to push for the championship, continuing the good points days alongside victories tonight. Third place from a charge up from the top 20, just barely up to third. Nick Tarbuck, podium here in the Long Pond circuit. If you have any final shout outs you'd like to give, we'd love to hear it.
Sure, man. Well, thank you as always for broadcasting. Thanks to the admins for putting on a good race tonight. Thanks to everybody for showing up. It's a good, almost caution-free race. It's really fun to be in those. Thanks to everybody who watched, the boys back home, mom, dad, the wife, friends, and the other Discord channel. And yeah, man, I guess we'll see y'all next week.
And of course, one more week in the regular season, and Nick Tarbuck, we're sure to see you there. Third place here from Pocono. We thank you once again for your time.
Thanks, man. Have a good one.
And with Nick on the way, we've heard from all your podium sitters tonight, and all three of which pretty established drivers in this series. Nick Tarbuck comes home third, Brad Patton making his way up for second, and of course, winner yet again, seventh time this season, Michael Lariah in the number 44. Doing it once again here from the Pocono Raceway. The number 44 collects the checkered flag with only one race left in the regular season next week in Michigan. And we hope to see you there live on FTN when we return with coverage of the Tuesday night series here, the Integrity OCTANE Series broadcast exclusively on FTN. I've been your host, David Kreutz, commentating and producing all of tonight's racing from the virtual Pocono Raceway. This has been coverage of the Andretti Straightaway 200, and we hope to see you once again for next week at Michigan to finish off the regular season and move toward our championship chase. If you enjoyed, make sure to leave a like on the stream and subscribe to the channel. Your support would be greatly appreciated. And if you want to join as a driver, check out the FTN Discord, scan the QR code on your screen, and you can find all up-to-date access on every league we broadcast here on the channel. Thank you for tuning in tonight from the virtual Pocono Raceway. You've been watching the Integrity OCTANE Series, and we hope you have a fantastic night.